Regular meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees, Monday, October 4th, 2021. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Hogan, will you take roll, please?
Mayor Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Clark is noted absent. Trustee LeKind.
Here.
Trustee Romanello is noted absent. Trustee Shaning. Trustee Stevens.
Here.
Okay, before us we have a consent agenda. Do we have any modifications or changes to the agenda? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan, will you take roll?
Trustee Shaning. Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee LeKind.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Yes.
Trustee Stevens.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Item 3, proclamation, Arts Month's proclamation. Do we have Mr. Vick online?
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Vick, I believe you received an email. We were unable to play your video. Would you like to make some comments before we address the proclamation?
Well, I would just thank you for the time and the opportunity to be on the agenda today and say that Arts Month is happening this October throughout the region. We're working with Madeline Vandenhoek from the city, the town there, to do a special project at the lake, a mural project, and we're very excited to be working with her again this year and to have Monument involved in Arts Month. So thank you very much. We appreciate the proclamation. We look forward to adding it to our website at artsoctober.com.
Thank you. Have the board members had the opportunity to read over the proclamation, and are there any questions or concerns with the proclamation? Hearing none, Trustee LeKind, would you read the proclamation, please?
Proclamation to recognize October as Arts Month in the Pikes Peak region. Whereas the month of October has been recognized as National Arts and Humanities Month by thousands of arts and cultural organizations, communities, and states across the country, as well as by the White House and Congress for more than 2 decades. And whereas the arts and humanities embody much of the accumulated wisdom, intellect, and imagination of humankind. And whereas the arts and humanities enhance and enrich the lives of every American, including those of us living in the Pikes Peak region. And whereas the arts and humanities play a unique role in the lives of our families, our communities, and our country. And whereas the nonprofit arts industry also strengthens our national economy by generating $166.3 billion in total economic activity annually, $153.3 million of annual economic impact in the Pikes Peak region, and by supporting the full-time equivalent of 4.6 million jobs across the nation, 5,070 jobs locally. Now, therefore, the Board of Trustees of the Town of Monument hereby proclaim October as Arts Month in Colorado's Pikes Peak region and call upon our citizens to celebrate and promote the arts and culture in Monument and to specifically encourage the greater participation by those said citizens in taking action for the arts and humanities in their community. Proclaimed this 4th day of October, 2021.
Thank you, Trustee LeKind. Any other comments on that before we move on? Okay. Item 4, presentation, El Paso County Loop Project Update. Ms. Lathan and Mr. Schaefer, before we begin this piece, I want to thank you guys for coming and presenting this to the board. It has been a long time that this area has been working on renewable water sources and how to get them to this area. And through partnerships with Monument, Woodmore, Cherokee Ranch, and some others, Palmer Lake, we are now getting close to having a solution, and we have some buy-in from that. This hasn't previously been brought to the board because we have not had a plan that we knew was feasible enough to get rolling. So I'm real excited to have you guys present this. So I will turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and board members. We are excited to be here. We have been talking to a lot of people regionally about this concept. This entire concept is not a completely brand new concept. There are just some new elements that have been added to this that actually allow this to move forward in a much more tangible way. And we think in a way that we can see into the future. People have been talking about these kinds of things for years and years, and now here we are with a very tangible possibility sitting right in front of us to be able to bring renewable water into this northern area of El Paso County and actually have users along the way be able to possibly use renewable sources of water as well. So I think we have a presentation keyed up, and what I'm going to do, we'll do introductions, and then I'm going to pitch it to Jesse. He'll do some of the slides. We are going to try to condense this because we've got, this presentation is a pretty long presentation. We don't want to take up that kind of time, but we want to give the gist of the entire process that we're undergoing here. So I'm Amy Lathan, and I'm the General Manager of Cherokee Metropolitan District. We are a metropolitan district on the eastern side of Colorado Springs. We're actually, largely, our customers are unincorporated. The Cimarron Hills neighborhood. We also serve residents in Falcon, and we serve Schriever Air Force Base and a few other customers along the way. So we provide water and wastewater along with a few other services to those customers. And then we have some water facilities in the Black Forest area and a significant water transmission pipeline that is coming into play in the loop. So let Jesse introduce himself, and then we'll see if we've got the presentation.
Thank you, Amy. My name is Jesse Schaefer. I'm the district manager over at Woodmore Water and Sanitation District, just across the street from y'all. I've been in the district manager position for, well, since 2009, so I guess about 11 years. And as Amy had alluded to, you know, this project that we're going to present to you guys tonight, you know, it's not a new concept, but it is a concept that seems to be gaining some traction, both in Woodmore and with Cherokee and with other folks who could be potential project participants in this, as well as hopefully El Paso County. The presentation we have to give you tonight is the identical presentation we gave to El Paso County in support of our asking for some ARPA money out of the county coffers. And hopefully the county supports this particular project and wants to contribute to it. I don't necessarily know that it's an absolute must that they have to, but we're certainly excited about it. We think it's a regional solution to, you know, water supply issues in the county. We're all on Denver Basin groundwater, or most of us are on Denver Basin groundwater, you know, a finite, non-renewable supply. It's not if it runs out, it's when. So, you know, we've got to be planning for the future, and we've got to be planning for long-term sustainable water supply. And that's exactly what we believe this project does.
Mr. Anderson, do you have that slideshow ready?
So while they're pulling that up, I think maybe if we just kind of give a conceptual idea of what we're looking at. There are every entity, every water district or city that provides water to customers. And in some cases, there are a few wastewater providers that might just have the bulk of that kind of service. But ultimately, water and wastewater providers have to produce that water from somewhere. So many of the water providers in the northern part of El Paso County produce that water from bedrock sources, the Denver Basin. The Denver Basin has a number of different layers, and producing water from those Denver Basin bedrock layers is expensive. The wells are very, very deep compared to more surface located kind of alluvial groundwater sources that exist within the county. Cherokee Metropolitan District is an example of a metro district that provides water to its customers using alluvial groundwater, which is a lot more shallow, and it is considered renewable, which means that snowmelt and rainwater perks down into the ground and renews that aquifer. That does not happen with the Denver water resources. So the problem set is those who produce water from Denver Basin resources who either are seeing depletions in those resources or additional expenses, increasing expenses, are looking for other ways to provide water to their customers. In this case, a number of customers in northern El Paso County actually own water, renewable water, in the southern part of the county, but cannot get it up here. So it's a question of transmission for some of the providers. So how do we get that water up to the customers who need the water, who are committed the water from the district? And then how do we use that water? And the reality is that most water producers produce that water and distribute it to customers. Customers consume that water. That producer or another producer in most cases collect all of that water, which is wastewater, and then treat it to some degree, and then in some ways reuse that. That's a reality of what happens in some cases. Some cities are on 100% reuse, and some cities are on very, very little. But it is the way of the future to reuse water. And so there's a big question as to how northern providers can access owned water resources in the southern part of the county that are renewable, pump them north to customers, consume them, and then let them flow down south and then recapture those, treat them, and return those water flows back to the customers. It's a loop. So we call this whole project the loop. And what we are doing is trying to make it very simple to put this together and allow access to some of these water users for reusing some of those water resources and saving them for the future.
Thanks again, Amy. Just real quick, Mayor Wilson, how much time did the board allot to this presentation? I just want to make sure we're on time. It'll require me to talk rapidly.
Well, let's try to keep it to 10 or 15 minutes.
10 or 15?
Yep.
Okay. Well, we're going to breeze through these slides rather quickly. I certainly would entertain any questions as we go along from the board or anybody else who has any questions. But with that, I guess let's go ahead and get started. I think Amy did a really good introduction on exactly why we call it the loop. So if we can have the first slide, please. So obviously, here's the region zoomed out, the light blue, Colorado Springs Utilities in the middle, the only enclave within the city, I guess, sort of a pinkish color. That's Cherokee Metropolitan District. Up north in purple is Woodmore, Town of Monument to our west, Triview Metropolitan District in green. And then also out east along the Highway 24 corridor, you're going to see a number of other water providers in the eastern portion of the county. This would include Meridian Hills, Meridian Ranch, Woodman Hills, Paintbrush Hills, Falcon Highlands. There's a number of them over there that serve a lot of folks on eastern El Paso County. And then, of course, we've got a lot of folks up north, us included, Cherokee in the middle. And then, of course, down south, there's some other providers who might be able to benefit from this loop project as well. And then primarily, I'm talking about the city of Fountain, Widefield Water, as well as Security Water and Sanitation District. Next slide, please. So Denver Basin aquifers, this is just a zoomed out map. You can see that the Denver Basin, stretches from about Greeley to North Colorado Springs, from the Front Range out to about Lyman. And it's a series of 4 aquifers, the shallowest being the Dawson Aquifer. And then the next deepest is the Denver Aquifer within the Denver Basin. All 4 of them collectively are called the Denver Basin aquifers. And then the Arapahoe Aquifer is the third deepest, the deepest one, Laramie Fox Hills Aquifer. These aquifers, they're finite in nature. You know, there's some debate on the Dawson Aquifer and how much recharge it may or may not get, but ultimately, I think for the purposes of this discussion and the take home is, you know, Mother Nature's not recharging these aquifers, and there's a lot of people with straws down in them. Over in Woodmore, we see declines of anywhere from 15 to 30 vertical feet per year in our wells, and they continue to decline. And what that means is the production rates decline with it. So even if we shut the door on growth and said we weren't going to allow another tap, we're still going to have to continue to drill wells just to maintain our current level of water supply. So that's what a lot of us face here, especially along the Front Range, when we're dependent upon Denver Basin aquifers. And I can tell you right now, although Woodmore owns a healthy portfolio of renewable water rights on Fountain Creek, down by the city of Fountain, as Amy indicated, we don't currently have a way of going down there and piping those water rights up. So we are still, and always have been, 100% dependent on Denver Basin groundwater. Next slide, please. So just some of the geology, you know, in reality, a lot of people have explained the Denver Basin aquifers as, boy, these we got these big lakes underneath our feet. I guess you could, in the most simplistic sense, think of them in that nature, but in reality, they're complex geologic formations. The sand thicknesses, the sand densities, lots of things geologic in the geologic community are different in between the aquifers, but by and large, it's water trapped in between pore space of sands within each one of those aquifers. And these are just pictures of sort of where those aquifers outcrop, north and east of the city of Colorado Springs. Next slide, please. Okay, just an example of what I'm talking about here. With the Denver Basin aquifers, you hit diminishing returns as the water levels drop. So do your production rates. And so incrementally, it takes more wells and more money and more effort in order to keep your production rate the same as what you normally need to supply your community. Growth just exacerbates the problem. You got to drill even more wells in order to supply water service to new customers. So the diminishing returns basically means well water is just going to get more and more expensive throughout time. Just to give you an example, Woodmore, we drilled a brand new Arapahoe well 2 years ago. We're probably looking at drilling another one next year. If not, it'll be the following year. Probably going to be on that kind of time step with well drilling in the near term, given the growth that we're looking at. So it's somewhat akin to mining Bitcoin, right? The next Bitcoin to fall out of the blockchain requires more computing power, more electricity, more inputs, more energy, and therefore more dollars. Mining Denver Basin aquifer water is about the same. Next slide, please. Okay, so the northern utilities comprised of Palmer Lake Monument, Triview, Woodmore, Denala. So these are all the water providers, at least in the northern area of El Paso County, who are either an active participant currently in the Loop project or who could conceivably benefit from the Loop project and may want to be a project participant later on. Next slide, please. I'm going to let Amy describe what's in her neck of the woods down near Cherokee and over in the eastern portion of El Paso County.
Sure. So in the east, you have all of your Falcon entities. We refer to them as the Falcon entities. Many of them are on Denver Basin resources as well. And so they would have the possibility of being able to draft water off of this system and be able to at least supplement some of their Denver Basin production. You see Cherokee Metropolitan District right there in the center. We have a significant amount of infrastructure throughout all of El Paso County. Cherokee started in 1957, so there have been many, many decades of construction of infrastructure. The pertinent piece for us is that we have a water transmission pipeline that comes from Black Forest 17 miles down and connects to one of our distribution tanks right on Mark Shuffle near Tamlin. There's a large water tank out there, and that water transmission line currently is bringing a small amount of water down into that transmission, into that distribution tank. This loop project would conceive of actually reversing the flow on that transmission line, those 17 miles of pipeline, and actually distributing water to the north with a connection that would need to be built from the southern part of the county to that distribution tank right there in Cherokee, kind of on the northeast side. So those are your eastern utilities that would be able to draft off of the system.
Next slide, please. Okay, down south, a number of utilities down there, Security Water and Sanitation District, Whitefield Water and the City of Fountain. They could conceivably become project participants on this particular project and receive some benefit to it. So it's not just limited to Northern El Paso County water providers, Eastern El Paso County water providers. It's really almost all the water providers within the region, exclusive of City of Colorado Springs. Next slide, please. I'll ask Amy once again to step up to the mic and give you the rundown on Cherokee Metro's involvement and how they became a project proponent on this.
So I know we're running out of time, but just roughly, so there are some of those eastern facilities that you see there along that line of wells. We have 22 wells out there, and that is in the alluvium. That is renewable water that gets replenished every year, every time it rains, every time it snows. So our water source is a different kind of water source. We then pump it into the district, and then we distribute to customers. With the blue line at the top left of the screen that you see up there, that is a water transmission line coming down from our Black Forest well field. Again, we do very little water production there and can reverse that flow to deliver water to the northern entities. So that's 17 miles of pipeline that is already in the ground. And what we're doing is partnering with the other entities to say we can build this loop with existing infrastructure using existing water rights that are in the southern part of the county to be able to supplement the Denver Basin resources that are up here in the northern part of the county. You'll see a quick slide, and I know we're almost out of time, but there's going to be a slide coming up where you'll see the loop concept. Again, this is a concept that's being discussed regionally. There's a difference between this loop concept and a reuse study that the City of Colorado Springs is doing that is similar to this. They have some different infrastructure already in the ground, similar to what we have, but in the southern part of the county through SDS. But they have a pretty steep rate structure related to that. And so there are some expense concerns that we have about being able to use that. And there are also some redundancies that we think would benefit both of these pipelines being in existence. So there's a significant amount of infrastructure that we're trying to simply connect into the loop.
Next slide, please. Go ahead, go on to the next slide, please. So here is a nice map shown mostly schematically here of the loop. In the portion of the pipeline you see from essentially the north end of Cherokee all the way up to the intersection of Black Forest and Hodgen Road. That's the Sundance Pipeline. That's the infrastructure, 24-inch pipeline infrastructure that Cherokee Metropolitan District installed a number of years ago. And that particular portion of pipeline is existing right now. So down at the very bottom, the loop starts essentially at Callahan Reservoir. So Woodmore Water owns Callahan Reservoir and about 3,000 acres surrounding it down in the southern portion of the county. So the idea, in addition to that, Woodmore is also a majority shareholder in the Chilcott Ditch Company, which is a irrigation, agricultural irrigation ditch company historically that drafts water rights off of Fountain Creek down a ditch about 8 miles and terminates them in Callahan Reservoir. So the thought process here would be that anybody who wanted to participate, whether they had water rights on Fountain Creek that they could draft off and put into the system, or if all they had was their non-tributary Denver Basin return flows being discharged out of their wastewater treatment facilities, they could at least at a bare bones minimum recapture their non-tributary wastewater effluent return flows and reuse them, transport them back up to the loop, reuse them, then a portion will get discharged back into the creek, they'll get redrafted off. down south at the Chilcot Ditch, run back into the reservoir. Out of the reservoir, there's a treatment facility that we have planned that would treat it to almost potable purposes. And then everybody, as the water gets dropped off along the way, would polish that water to send to their customers. So in part, the loop is a reuse project, and it is making our existing water supplies go further, retarding well drilling, things of that nature. And then also it's a new supply project for those individuals and entities who can or have renewable water supplies that they can push through the loop as well. And then as you continue to circulate this around the loop, depending on certain things that could get built, you sort of get this multiplier effect with one molecule running through the loop. By the time it gets used to extinction, I believe the multiplier is somewhere around 1.3 to 1.8 in terms of total use on a system like this. And so it would there would be a expansion of Cowhan Reservoir, some water treatment facilities located down there. Then there would be a pipeline that runs northerly up to the Tamlin tank in Cherokee, connecting into the Sundance Pipeline. From there, water would be transported all the way up to Black Forest and Hodgen. From that particular location, there's a number of different alignments, but by and large, we'd connect on to essentially the northern terminus of the Sundance Pipeline, and then build another pipeline that drops it into the Tri-Lakes area for distribution to and Woodmore, Tri-View, anybody participate up here. Next slide, please.
Mr. Schaefer, real quick. We have a lot on the agenda this evening, but is the board okay with them continuing on through the slideshow past the regular time of presentation?
Okay, little more detail, a little more zoomed in. Here's the southern portion of the loop. At the bottom of the page, you'll have Cowhan Reservoir, and then of course, the pipeline would run north, across Chilcot Ditch shown in purple, and then continue north up to Cherokee, connecting into the Sundance Pipeline. When water gets looped around, discharged into Fountain Creek or Monument Creek, which is tributary to Fountain Creek, the molecules of water that are reusable, that people can recapture and reuse, would get redrafted off at the Chilcot Ditch headgate located on Fountain Creek, and then run back through the loop yet again. What's also shown there on the right-hand side or to the east is, I believe it's blue triangles and a yellow line. That's Colorado Springs' southern delivery system. And their Williams Creek pump station is, 3/4 of a mile, I guess, due east of Cowhan Reservoir. So we see this project not as a competing project with, convey, treat, and deliver and regional concepts that Colorado Springs is working on, but we see this really as the two projects being able to benefit from one another in terms of resiliency and other things. Next slide, please. I'm going to ask Amy to jump in here and give a brief rundown on the population that we're estimating that this loop could serve.
Well, and I'm not going to go through all those numbers. You can see the different entities that could draft off of this system. It is significant. And keep in mind that these are all entities that are outside of the city of Colorado Springs. So either a municipality like Monument, or there are water districts, special districts that are providing water to thousands of customers. And the big question, like we started in the beginning, what's the problem? The problem set is the Denver Basin wells, their sustainability and their pricing, their cost overall, and in the long term. And how do we take the pressure off? How do we help resolve that? How do we have redundancy? This is the number of people that we're talking about serving. You see the northern entities, you see the eastern, you see the southern. It's not that all of those entities are at the table in this working group right now. It's that they all have access to these kinds of water rights, being able to pull off this system. We've talked with all of these folks. They recognize that this is a way for them to have the kinds of redundancy that they need, especially when they have failures or reduced production in their well system. So this is something that will allow for long-term sustainability, not only for the existing customers and providers but certainly for new customers as they come online. So we have a significant number of customers served outside of the city of Colorado Springs, either in unincorporated El Paso County or in other smaller municipalities.
Next slide, please. I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but regional solutions have been sought in the past. I've been at the district almost 20 years in total, and when I first got to the district, it was always about partnerships and working with others, trying to come up with a regional water supply solution in El Paso County. Started out with many of us up north with an outfit or a informal group called the Palmer Divide Water Group, and it consisted of Monument, Woodmore, Palmer Lake, basically all the northern entities. Of course, El Paso County Water Authority was created back then too. It's since morphed into the Pikes Peak Regional Water Authority. I'll spare you a lot of the details as to why that came about. But, we've been working together and working with entities, all of us, for the past 20 years. So, working together and brainstorming and butting our heads together, trying to come up with a solution. This isn't an ad hoc kind of thing that all of a sudden everybody woke up one morning and said, "Oh, let's dream up this loop concept." That's not quite how it works. We've been working together for a long time. Next slide. So we've done a number of past studies over the years. I think there's probably been 10 or 12 of them. We've done anything from forebay storage to terminal storage to satellite well fields to how can we get water from Colorado Springs utilities. We have learned an awful lot over the past. We've taken a look at reuse, both at the Tri-Lakes Wastewater Treatment Facility and with the Upper Monument Wastewater Facility in a collective fashion. We've also taken another look at, reuse out of the Tri-Lakes Wastewater Facility. So we have a number of studies, a number of things we've done over the years collectively and individually that really help shape our vision of why we believe this loop project really does a lot of good for a lot of folks. Next slide, please. So in terms of the water yield, I guess it's about I can't see it really good, 1.24 to 1.82. This is the concept I was talking about. You take a molecule of water, you suck it out of the Denver Basin. It's non-tributary to the stream system. You send it to your customers. Hypothetically, let's say half gets, put on the ground for irrigation. The other half is internal use. Runs down the drains, ends up at the wastewater treatment facility, gets cleansed and discharged into the creek. That molecule of water, or half a molecule of water in this instance, is reusable to extinction. So you can draft it off the river at the Chilcot Ditch head gate, run it through the system. It comes back, gets cut in half again, and then a quarter runs into the stream system, and you go round and round and round. And by the time it gets used to extinction, when you account for losses in the reservoir in terms of evaporation, stream flow losses in terms of transit loss down Fountain Creek and transit loss in the ditch system, you come up with on this diverging series, you come up with a multiplier of about 1.24 to 1.82, depending on if you line the ditch and did some other things that took away some of the losses. Next slide, please. So in terms of alternatives, this particular project, the Loop project, I guess with just a little bit more infrastructure, it could connect up real easy to Colorado Springs utilities and the Southern Delivery System. So just because an entity might be favor Colorado Springs utilities or think that that's the direction that they want to head with a convey, treat, and deliver contract through them, doesn't mean they can't participate in the Loop project. They could participate in the Loop project and all its facilities. And instead of running their molecules of water through the Loop, we just take them out of the reservoir, treat them to, again, an almost potable standard, and then they can boost that water directly into the Colorado Springs utilities raw water system. It would flow north up the SDS pipeline, get cleansed and treated, to potable standards at Colorado Springs' new Bailey water treatment facility, and then get discharged to that particular convey treating customer, however their contract reads. Next slide, please. So in terms of cost, we did some preliminary estimates here, and they're the best estimates that we currently have. We are right now engaged in a engineering study to refine the pipeline alignments, refine the treatment, both the type of treatment and quantity of treatment that we need, and give us revised cost estimates in terms of what it's going to take to build all these facilities and operate them over a long term. And right now, I believe our total cost estimate somewhere in the neighborhood of $134 million for the project. Now, that's not including payback costs or buyout costs or anything like that with Cherokee's Sundance Pipeline. That's something yet to be discussed, but nonetheless, it's heavy in capital costs up front. But I think when we compare it to the convey, treat, and deliver contracts that CSU may be offering one day, I believe in the long run, this might turn out to be the cheaper alternative as well. Next slide, please. So obviously there's challenges with this particular project. It is technologically and feasibly, the project is technically and feasible and legally feasible. But you know, the biggest downside is it's expensive. 134 million, even between 6 or 8 entities. That's a big chunk of change. So it is going to be it's going to be a challenge to finance this particular project and get it constructed. Next slide, please. Okay, I'll pass it back over to Amy.
Thank you. My favorite slide. So I also have spent years in this county looking at all these water issues, 9 years over at El Paso County with the commissioners there. And we have been having this conversation for a long time. Years here with Cherokee and working with this regional group. I think we're closer now than maybe ever before with a very real, very realistic and possible water connection. I know that 134 million sounds like a lot of money, and it is. You have to look at water pipeline right now, and that's just right now. You can't even look at a mile of pipeline before spending $1 million. And that's probably the lowest possible estimate you can get per mile. That doesn't include your lift stations and your treatment. So it is very expensive to move water around the region. But water is absolute. And if you don't have water, then all the highway issues and all the DHS issues and all the funding issues that we all talk about and you as a board talk about for your town and everyone talks about on a municipal level, a county level, et cetera, doesn't really matter because you have to have water. And as you know, we live in a place without a giant reservoir or a great big lake or a wonderful river. We get really creative with our water resources. The source of water for all of these providers is the key to these issues. Colorado Springs Utilities has extraordinary water, and that is often first use, rain, snow melt out of the mountains. And that's great. And that's been set up over decades and decades and decades. But not all of the providers around the city of Colorado Springs have that luxury. And so we're trying to work with the sources of water that all of these providers have. And we know that nothing matters if we don't get this water problem solved. We can solve it. We certainly have water in the region. We have the water. We just need to be able to move that water around in a reasonable sort of way. Next slide, please. And so with the loop, we are, as Jesse said, we are undergoing this preliminary study, this engineering study to try to refine those numbers and really understand a little bit more about the alignment and exactly what we need. It is complementary to the work that we are doing with the Pikes Peak Regional Water Authority and Colorado Springs Utilities. Jesse and I are both on that water authority. We both work with that full group as well. But there are some water rights issues that may arise by using Southern Delivery System. The Southern Delivery System is tied to the 1041 permit with Pueblo, and so not all customers in the entire county can be served off of that system. There are some cost issues that we're concerned about in the long term. We need to get our cost issues resolved. We are asking El Paso County for a significant portion of those federal dollars that have been granted to El Paso County to spend in these kinds of regional infrastructure projects. So El Paso County has been granted $140 million, sure get the number correct, over the course of two chunks of money. And they have to make determinations on how to spend that. So we certainly are asking for a significant chunk of that to complete the connections and create this redundancy within El Paso County. So there are several next steps. We will be forming an entity. Our working group right now is doing all of the work. There will be an entity to which the funds could go for the design, engineering, and construction for the loop and create this connection. And so I think that's the last slide. Is there one more? There we go. We've done this a couple of times. Okay, so obviously we need to be able to form that entity. We need to be able to talk with all entities, and we're pretty close. Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, Pikes Peak Regional Water Authority, El Paso County, the City of Colorado Springs, all of you folks in the northern part of the county and the eastern users, southern users, etc. Who wants to come and participate, who sees the value proposition that exists here, and how do we make all of this happen? So there's a great deal of work that still needs to be done, but we're kind of on the fast track with that work, more so than we have been in the last, I'd say, 15 to 20 years with the studies that have been done. So we're quite excited about the potential here, and we know that it's not only an exciting possibility, but it's a necessary endeavor to figure out how we get those renewable, reusable water rights out to more customers. So with that, I think we're at the end of it. You're going to tell me. That just kind of shows you those maps again so that you can see the loop. It's just a privilege to be able to work with Jesse and others on this kind of a project. It's a privilege to be able to bring the infrastructure that we have as a small metropolitan district to the table to consider as part of the answer to this regional question. And so we're excited to be working together, and we wanted to share this with you and answer any questions that you might have as we go forward with El Paso County right now.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Yeah, when I first came on board, I learned that over 80% of our water goes to agricultural. That's where, because they have senior water rights. And my understanding, Mr. Tharnish is not here, but my understanding is that we have thousands, if not 100,000 of gallons that we have to pump into the creek in order to make it available downstream. So if that's still true, has any thought been given to a ballot initiative to equalize the senior rights versus the less than senior rights? Because the more populous people are in the districts, and we're fighting over 20% of the water or less that's left over. And is there any way that way we don't have to shove it all the way downstream and then have to pump it back upstream? It sounds like this has become a nightmare, a logistical nightmare, costing us millions of dollars, as you said.
I'm going to let Jesse take the bulk of that because we don't, for my district, we don't have those Denver Basin rights, and we're not subject to the Fountain Creek, those Fountain Creek kinds of agreements at all. We have our own kind of reuse system already in place in eastern El Paso County. Likewise, with some of the Falcon entities, they would not be subject because they don't discharge into Fountain Creek. You're probably looking more at the northern users and City of Colorado Springs with those percentages.
Yeah, I'm certainly not a water rights attorney, and I think your question's probably best aimed at one. But, you know, from my understanding of water rights in Colorado, I don't believe a ballot initiative. I guess you could try to do something like that, but I think it would foster so much opposition relative to Colorado water law that I just don't see it being able to pass. Mr. Tarnish is right. Most of the water rights in Colorado are still used in agriculture, about 80-20. And so there's still a lot of water resource out there. Another fun statistic is out of all the water rights in Colorado, 80% of the water flows out the Colorado River and its tributaries to the west, and 80% of the population lives on the eastern side of the divide. So here in Division 2 and also in Division 1, I'm talking water divisions, the Arkansas Basin as well as the South Platte, they're heavily stressed with agricultural interests as well as municipal interests. It's a rather unique dichotomy for sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Again, question for an attorney. We're not attorneys, but a water right by its definition is owned, and I'm not sure a legislative ballot initiative would have what kind of bearing that could have on that right that's owned. So each one would have to be looked at individually.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Okay, so Mr. Schaefer, you spoke about using to extinction, and it's been rumored in the past that Monument Water District loses about 250,000 gallons a day down Monument Creek just because we have no way to recapture that water. With this system, we'd be able to recapture that water and just continuously use it until it's gone.
Yes, minus transit losses and other losses as it floats down the stream. But yes, that's the concept. The first half of the loop, I guess you will, is it's a reuse project. You grab your molecules of water out of the stream, reuse them. A portion gets dumped back into the stream that's fully consumable. It floats down. You recapture it, you reuse it, so on and so forth, and until it's used to extinction. And then again, the second half of the project is any actual water rights, say along Fountain Creek, or they could be exchanged up from the Arkansas River or transported up through a delivery contract with Colorado Springs Utilities, can get dumped off into the reservoir and run through the loop. And similar to Denver Basin groundwater, all his I wouldn't say all, but most agricultural water rights, there is a portion that is reusable to extinction. It's called consumptive use. And so a portion of anybody's surface water rights or their direct flow rights will be able to be used to extinction, just like Denver Basin groundwater rights.
Thank you. And you spoke briefly, and I know it was kind of a rush, but redundancy and kind of in conjunction with CSU. Can you elaborate on that a little more?
I'll ask Amy to give you some rundown on that.
Okay.
Just keep tag teaming this. So again, there are some issues with the SDS water, introducing water into that system that can be consumed in various locations around the county have to be subject to the 1041 permit with Pueblo County, meaning it cannot be served outside the Arkansas drainage basin. So users north of the South Platte Arkansas boundary, which is up here in Monument, we don't have that marked on any of these maps, I don't think, cannot use any water through the Southern Delivery System. So to the extent that some users might not have access to it, it would be very good to have a system that's not subject to that 1041 permit. Any pipeline within El Paso County would have its own 1041 permit, but that would be with El Paso County. And that would be adjudicated as we go along through this process. The other thing is there are always maintenance issues for redundancy that are really, really important for water providers to have available, and the ability to move water that's already owned by right, and not having to pay an extra large tariff on that water. That's a big issue. And so there are some users that could do very well by using SDS, perhaps coming off of the Callahan Reservoir and then drafting up into their system. But there are other users that might not be able to afford the kinds of rate structure that are contemplated with that system. That's why Jesse mentioned the capital up front on this is higher, because that southern connection still has to be built, even though we have the northern connection. But the long-term operating costs on this look to be much lower for the sustainable future.
And then one last thing, you mentioned the county helping with this project with some federal funding. As a member of PPACG, I received some feedback when you presented to PPACG that they're also interested in helping secure some federal funding as an advocate for this. So thank you. Any questions?
Just one quick question.
Well, that's going to depend on how large the pipeline is, but currently we're eyeing about 6,500 acre feet annually of fully consumable water run through the pipeline. And to put that into perspective for you, Woodmore uses about 1,000 acre feet a year currently with our current size.
Okay. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, ordinance number 36, 2021, an ordinance adopting by reference the 2020 edition of the Model Traffic Code for Colorado. Commander Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the board. The Model Traffic Code for Colorado was published by the Colorado Department of Transportation and embodies the rules of the road and vehicle requirements as set forth by Article 4, Title 42 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. The Colorado Revised Statutes authorizes local authorities to adopt by reference all or any part of the Model Traffic Code for Colorado. Colorado Revised Statutes authorizes local authorities to enact and enforce traffic regulations on the roads and streets anywhere within their jurisdiction. In a nutshell, adopting the Model Traffic Code allows municipalities like us to enact and enforce traffic violations and hear them in our own municipal court. Currently, the Town and Monument by ordinance has adopted the 2010 Model Traffic Code. This was the last revised edition of the code. On July 7th of this year, 2021, the Colorado Department of Transportation released revision 2 of the 2020 Model Traffic Code. Tonight, I respectfully request that the board approve ordinance 36-2021, adopting by reference the 2020 edition of the Model Traffic Code, repealing all ordinances in conflict therewith, providing penalties for the Model Traffic Code violation, and making conforming amendments to Title 10 of the Monument Municipal Code.
Okay, questions from the board?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
By adopting this new ordinance, will this actually have the drivers in this area actually drive the rules of the road and the law, follow the laws?
We can hope.
No guarantees?
No guarantees, sir.
At least the same ticket you get in Denver, you get down here.
Not to exceed $1,000.
Yeah, that's right. I do have one question. You're repealing all of our laws that are in conflict. I noticed on part 13 on page, well, it depends on how they're page numbering here. I'll go by the page 129. Basically says alcohol and drug offenders. This is removed. So am I to interpret that as saying we no longer have any DUI penalties?
We do not hear DUI cases in municipal court. Those go directly to the county. So that would fall under Title 42 of the Colorado Revised Statutes.
Okay, so this would not be repealing anything that is in that statute.
Correct.
Okay. Also, there was a repeal of accident and accident reporting. I would think that if, someone gets into a fender bender and needs to report that to the police, do we have any ordinances that are being removed because of that? Or?
No, sir, that still falls under Colorado Revised Statutes, Title 42, for mandatory reporting of traffic accidents.
Okay, so the fact that they've removed it from this model doesn't mean they've removed it from the statute.
Correct.
Okay. Just want to be sure on that. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Other questions from the board? Okay, this is a public hearing item, so is there anyone who would like to speak for or against this item? Mr. Anderson, do we have anyone online? Okay. And it looks like we have nobody present that would like to speak for or against this item. So that being the case, I will close the public hearing portion of this item and bring it back to the board for further discussion or motion.
I make a motion to approve ordinance number 36-2021, an ordinance adopting by reference the 2020 edition of the Model Traffic Code for Colorado, repealing all ordinances in conflict therewith, providing penalties for model traffic code violations, and making conforming amenities to Title 10 of the Monument Municipal Code.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0. This takes us to item number 6, quasi-judicial items. Before we get into our quasi-judicial items, we had put in a recent resolution that online participants of the board could not vote on quasi-judicial items. Mr. Rivera, you were saying that you had noticed a different kind of trend in this, and I wondered if you would kind of give us your thoughts on online participating online and quasi-judicial items.
As everyone is aware, when the board acts in its capacity as a quasi-judicial entity, it's acting as both judge and juror, and the idea being that the judge, as a judge and juror, that the board has to afford all of the applicants and participants of these hearings due process rights, the right to have witnesses, the right to have testimony, right for argument, etc. And when the pandemic began, I'll speak for myself, I had barely even heard of Zoom. And I think there was some questions about whether we could generally have respect quasi-judicial rights in a virtual atmosphere. And so there was a lot of questions about whether those were okay or not, or whether we could have quasi-judicial hearings remotely. I think now, 18 months later, maybe 2 years later, I think the pendulum has swung all the way over. And I think now, frankly, the expectation is that those rights can be afforded through participation. It's been my experience that some entities are requiring quasi-judicial participation, and so that's my report. And I was asked earlier to look in and see whether there was any prohibitions against the town either way, and I found none. So I believe it to be the board's discretion. Actually, and with one other piece, some of the entities that some other local entities that went through this process required permitted quasi-judicial participation on the condition that the applicant waive their right to a hearing, and that's also a possibility. And then others, as time progressed, basically removed that waiver requirement and just mandated it. But there's lots of ways to skin this cat. Is my point.
So we're seeing that quasi-judicial hearings, including in regular court, are becoming, remote participation in quasi-judicial hearings is becoming more commonplace among any sort of court setting.
Apart from criminal matters that require a jury, that's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
So along those lines, civil matters are being adjudicated via Zoom?
I have been involved not in, so they're called lesser hearings. So, but I have involved in lesser hearings where we were given the opportunity to participate via WebEx. That's actually the state requirement. Or and I've actually been involved in some matters before the Colorado Department of Regulatory Affairs, where they required us to participate virtually. So I guess that my point is the pendulum has swung. I think the focus now is on ensuring that remote participants are of all parties in the remote participation platform have the same information, have the same access to the testimony, the exhibits, etc. And so long as everybody can hear one another and everybody can meaningfully participate, I think it's fine.
So I think that's something the board should ponder and maybe come back and decide if we still want to maintain that you have to be in person for quasi-judicial hearings. I don't think it has an effect on this evening. We could ask Mayor Pro Tem Elliott if she planned on participating in the quasi-judicial hearings. And we could suspend the rule if we'd like her to participate. or we could just go on as we said in our resolution, but we seem to have been kind of inconsistent in our resolution because some things have been quasi-judicial, maybe not necessarily on the surface, but they were quasi-judicial and we didn't.
Yes, the mayor is correct. There's lots of ways to do it. And one other option was to ask the participant to waive if they're so inclined.
Mayor Wilson, I verified before the meeting that we had enough people in person, and therefore I planned on not participating and voting in the quasi judicial issues.
Okay. With that being said, we'll move forward. Item number 6A, resolution number 54, 2021, a resolution approving a final plat for Sanctuary Point, filing number 10. Ms. Flynn.
Yes, good evening, Board and Mayor Wilson. Sanctuary Point filing number 10 is within phase 1 of Sanctuary Point, as you've seen on the screen tonight. Filing 10 is 5.35 acres in size. Sanctuary Point Phase 1 Major PD Site Plan Amendment number 4 was approved by the Board of Trustees on May 3rd, 2021 for 12 single-family detached lots rather than a church site. The 12 lots makes up about 60% of the filing, 3 tracks and 1 street called Treetop Glory Court. The lots range in size from 8,400 square feet to 14,416 square feet. The 3 tracks will be owned and maintained by Triview Metro District number 4. The plat is consistent with the approved PD site plan and the site plan amendment number 4. On September 8th, 2021, no questions or concerns were brought to the public. The public had no concerns and neither did the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission voted 4-0 to recommend approval. Recommendation of approval of resolution number 54, 2021, final plat of Sanctuary Point, filing number 10, based on the findings that the final plat complies with the review and approval criteria of the Town of Monuments Municipal Code, section 18.02.260.c. And Lauren Moreland is online tonight to answer any questions from Classic Homes.
So the applicant has no presentation?
No presentation.
Okay. At this time, does the board have any questions for Ms. Flynn or the applicant?
I have a question.
Okay.
On the slide,
Yep.
it just disappeared. You said that there was, this is for where the church was going?
Yes,
And you're saying nobody showed up to contest?
because this is a plat, they came up to contest about the site plan. And since this is the plat with the approved site plan, they knew that this was going to happen.
And they still didn't show up.
No one, there was someone that came that didn't have a comment that came.
Okay, because I recall they were pretty vocal about.
Yes, and I let them know that the hearing was for the Planning Commission on September 8th and for tonight, and they had nothing to address because everything was addressed during the site plan submittal, the amendment to the site plan.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board for town staff or the applicant? This is a public hearing item, so I will open it up to the public. Mr. Anderson, do we have anyone online that would like to speak for or against this item? Okay. Do we have anyone here that would like to speak for or against this item? Sir, would you please come up?
My name is Joel Lusby, spelled Lusby, Joel. And bear with me, I have a tiny little bone. With Mr. Mayor and trustees, with your permission, I'd like to read a mail from another elector, Steve King.
Okay.
Is that all right? So he was unable to come tonight, so I'm just going to go ahead and read his comments. Mr. Mayor and town trustees, I suspect nothing will be achieved by my statement, but someone has to say it. Best I can tell, Monument started out with roughly 560 acres of forest. This was done by measuring areas on Google Earth with their measuring tool. We now have roughly 310 acres left because Classic cut down approximately 250 acres of trees, almost half of all the forest in the town of Monument. There is never a reason to have 6,000 square feet lots in the middle of a forest, as Sanctuary Point does. And now they will clear cut another 5 acres for a few more houses. Maybe it's 3 acres, maybe 4, but the majority of the 5 acres will be leveled. Again, these are small lots, so there's no way around it. They will boast about being a fire-safe community, but that's a result of taking out tens of thousands of trees, so that's obvious. The residents of Sanctuary Point came out in reasonably large numbers to protest this remaining 5 acres, and they left with nothing, so the remaining 5 acres of this site will pack in as many as they can on their way out. To make matters worse, the Planning Commission got the green light from the town attorney to eliminate 2 of the 12 lots, and instead of giving the residents something, they granted the applicant all 12, despite what the comprehensive plan and the municipal code states about retaining natural features, including trees. This has been a problem in the past where disregard was given to the comprehensive plan, and there is rarely a balance of development. Now that we have a new planning director, I hope and expect this process will change. This is food for thought. Our remaining land needs to be better managed, or the character of the community will be completely lost. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment on this item? Okay. Would the applicant like to make any sort of rebuttal?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and trustees, thanks for hearing this tonight. As we know, Mr. King was a planning commissioner through many of the filings, including, I think, PD Site Plan 2 and PD Site Plan 3 approval. He always noted the fact that he was very hurt by the fact that we were removing trees in the limited forest that was part of Town of Monument. But as we work through this, originally the sketch plan was approved in 2006. And that was initially approved with PD Site Plan 1 to have a 65,000 square foot church on it, excuse me. And so with that, as we provided during the major amendment to the PD Site Plan 1 through Planning Commission and Board of Trustees, in order to put a commercial structure of that size on that 5 acres, it would have been fully graded and all trees would have been removed. We initially started with 15 lots, and through working with the residents of Sanctuary Point who live in the adjacent filings to this, we reduced that from 15 to 12, added the tracks so there was connectivity from Clandestine Court and Filing 2 down through this cul-de-sac to give a loop access to the park and mail kiosk. And so again, as we've worked through this process with the surrounding neighborhoods, Higbee Estates, Fox Pines, Happy Landings, people that have been neighbors to this community for 20 or 30 years, there was give and take throughout the process, which we demonstrated here as we work through this layout. Ultimately, this could have held 16 lots on the PRD4. We initially submitted that at 15 to the neighbors through the neighborhood meetings, and ultimately landed on 12 lots, removing 2 that were directly adjacent to the Sanctuary Rim Drive entrance to help preserve some of the trees at the entry. And we also adjusted the grading of the streets and the lot types to minimize the tree removal. Will there be tree removal? Absolutely, in the right of way and the required area for utilities. But we didn't grade this as all typical lots. We adjusted those, so we will have everything from walkout to standard to drive under lots in order to maintain some of the natural topography of the high point on this 5 acres. And so again, I understand Mr. King's issue with the removal, but again, it's much better than what it would have happened with 65,000 square foot commercial facility like a church, along with the parking required for that area. And I think that's all I have to add.
Thank you. At this point, I will close the public hearing portion and bring it back to the board for any further questions or concerns or motion.
Yes, I have a question for Classic. So my understanding is you're going to try to do your best to leave a number of trees already there. And will there be any trees that will be replanted for along the sides, so to speak?
We have a 50-foot buffer along Baptist Road, so those trees remain. We generally remove for the 60-foot right-of-way. Excuse me. I would normally there in person. I'm finally COVID caught me last Tuesday, so forgive me for clearing my throat. 50-foot buffer along Baptist. We removed the 2 lots on the east side of Sanctuary Rim Drive, accessing this. Not a lot of trees on the northern portion of that, more towards the entry monumentation. And then again, we'll clear that 60-foot right away, the 15-foot required utility easement on either side of that. So roughly we're clearing 100 feet. And then what we've started to do initially in filing our PD site plan 1, which was filings 1 through 3, we were clearing everywhere we thought the homes were going to go. After that, we kind of got an education meeting with Dave Root from CSU, who was actually the author of the Firewise guidelines. And we started preserving as many trees as possible because some homes are very wide, some are narrow, some are shallow, some are deep. And so depending upon the home, then we remove the trees required to the minimum standard of Firewise, which is 15 feet to drip line. So then we come in on a lot by lot basis based on what the customer selected, and we remove those trees. So I think there will be a fair amount of trees preserved on the southern edge of this property. Some of the lots on the eastern edge are a little larger, but those homes will need to be set back. And I think it will be very consistent with what you see in portions of filings 3 and 4 of Sanctuary Point. So obviously we're going to lose a lot of trees, but a lot less than what it would have been if this had ended up being a church site.
And also, are you aware if the covenants require the residents to plant trees or a certain amount of trees? I know in my area, there's a minimum amount of trees that are required on each lot.
We absolutely require that. The design guidelines are very specific in regards to required tree plantings as it pertains to lot square footage. There's a ratio that's required. Some credit is given obviously for some of the trees are very heavily forested, larger lots. These are smaller. And so that goes through a third party. NES is our landscape design review professional on that site. And so each homeowner is required to submit to maintain Firewise. So mulch beds were amended in later. So those are allowed as long as they're not creating a ladder fuel situation, and a certain number of deciduous trees proportionate to the amount of disturbed lot are required.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the board or a motion?
I make a motion to approve resolution number 542021, a resolution approving a final plat for Sanctuary Point filing number 10.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan, will you take roll, please?
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee LeKind?
Yes.
Trustee Shaning?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
She's not voting on this.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Mayor Wilson?
Yes. That motion passes 4-0. Item 6B, Item 6B, public hearing, resolution number 55-2021. Resolution approving the final plat for Homeplace Ranch filing 1.
Yep, this is for filing number 1 and 2, this presentation. First is Homeplace Ranch filing number 1. It's within phase 1 of Homeplace Ranch, north of Glen Eagle Drive and north.
Ms. Flynn, you're doing item B and C in the same presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So we have 2 public hearing items, but 1 presentation. Go
Yes.
ahead.
And both resolutions are within the presentation.
Okay.
It's north of Glen Eagle Drive and north of Homestead at Jackson Creek and west of Sanctuary Point. Oops, sorry, forgot to put the map up. Filing number 1 is 22.3 acres in size. Homeplace Ranch Phase 1 Minor PD Site Plan Amendment number 1 was approved administratively in August 2021. The changes made the minor amendment depict on an increase of 8 single-family detached lots from 67 to 75. Future filings will balance out the approved 300 lots. The applicant will be constructing Sanctuary Rim Drive to the town's roadway standards with their construction document submittal. Also, prior to recording of the final plat for filings 4, 5, 6, or 7, Homeplace Ranch LLC shall construct an interim extension of Glen Eagle Drive that shall extend from north side of the intersection of Glen Eagle Drive and Sanctuary Rim Drive up to Higbee Road. The roadway shall have a minimum paved width of 33 feet. The 90-foot right-of-way for the roadway shall also be dedicated at this time. This requirement shall be waived if the full design of this segment of road and the proposed improvements on Higbee Road have been approved and funded through agreements currently pending with Triview Metro District. Filing number 1 consists of 75 lots, which makes up about 42% of the filing, 6 tracks and 7 streets. The lots range in size from 4,467 square feet to 10,555 square feet. The tracks and open space will be owned and maintained by Triview Metro District number 3. The tract A will be split into 2 tracks. Tract A and F, and said tracks be depicted as part of the final plat prior to recordation. And shown here, this was not included in the plat that you reviewed for tonight's hearing. This will be a condition later presented in the presentation. These 2 tracks will be owned and maintained by Triview District number 1. Tracks in A through F will serve as a variety of purposes, including public utilities, landscaping, and drainage. Water and wastewater services will be provided by Triview Metro District number 3. The plat is consistent with the approved minor PD site plan amendment number 1, and all applicable code standards are met. Next, it's Homeplace Ranch filing number 2. This is within phase 1 of Homeplace Ranch, west of filing number 1, north of Homestead at Jackson Creek, and west of Sanctuary Point. Filing number 2 is 16.6 acres in size. Homeplace Ranch phase 1 minor PD site plan amendment was approved administratively in August 2021. The changes made in the minor amendment depicted a decrease of 3 single-family detached lots from 70 to 67. Future filings will balance out the approved 300 lots of Homeplace Ranch. Filing number 2 consists of 67 lots, which makes up about 61% of this filing, 2 tracks and 5 streets. Lots range in size from 5,292 square feet to 10,437 square feet. The tracks and open space will be owned and maintained by Triview Metro District number 3. Tracks A and B serve as a variety of purposes, including public utilities, landscaping, and drainage. Wastewater and water services will be provided by Triview Metro District number 3. The plat is consistent with the approved minor PD site plan amendment number 1, and all applicable code standards are met. On September 8th, 2021, the project was heard in front of the Planning Commission. 2 residents had questions or concerns regarding the project, such as emergency evacuation plans, Sanctuary Rim Drive and Glen Eagle Drive construction being completed prior to the building of any homes, sidewalks along Sanctuary Rim Drive and Glen Eagle Drive, more trees to block snow drifts, fencing along the property lines, and usage of the emergency access easement. Planning Commission voted 4-0 to recommend approval. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Resolution number 55, 2021. the final plat of Homeplace Ranch, filing number 1, based on the findings that the final plat complies with the review and approval criteria from the Town of Monuments Municipal Code, Section 18.02.260.c, with the following conditions: that Tract A be split into 2 tracts, Tract A and F, and said tracts be depicted as part of the final plat prior to recordation. Tract F be added to the tract table and land summary chart and be noted as being owned and maintained by Triview District Number 1. Let me just go back to show you what that was again. And that was this. Next. Sorry to make you dizzy. Planning Commission recommends recommendation for Homeplace Ranch, filing number 2. The Planning Commission recommends approval of resolution number 56, 2021, final plat of Homeplace Ranch, filing number 2, based on the findings that the final plat complies with the review and approval criteria from the Town of Monuments Municipal Code, Section 18.02.260.c. And the applicants are here tonight from HR Green to answer any questions that you may have.
No presentation by the applicant.
No presentations.
Any questions from the board for staff or the applicant?
Yes, I have a question. I just want to, I think you already mentioned it in your presentation, but I just want to go over it again to make sure it's clear in my mind. When we originally approved this, there was an emergency road access of Glen Eagle Drive north of this to Higbee Road. At that point, there was a conflict with the county, and the county had to approve it, and that's why, and they would only approve that. Did I understand you correctly that this is a fully paved road that is extending Glen Eagle Drive all the way to Higbee Drive?
I'm going to let the applicant answer this. It's going to be an interim road, but they can give you more information on how it's going to be constructed.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Board of Trustees. Phil Stufer with HR Green. Been involved in the entitlements of this project since 4 or 5 years ago. I remember many of you here. We also have Jim Byers representing Homeplace LLC, and then Ken Hune is our lead civil engineer. So we'll continue to answer questions as they come up. Yeah, correct. Back when we tried to get a secondary access up to Higbee, the county basically said no at the time. We pushed for that for both emergency and a full vehicular access, and they would not let us do that. So we have an emergency access only that will be constructed in the intermediate term. And that the item that Debbie mentioned when it actually goes to Higbee is not built until filings 4, 5, 6, and 7. So filings 1, 2, and 3 can be built without making that connection up to Higbee for a permanent access, okay? So only an emergency access will be constructed in the short term for filings 1, 2, and 3. Does that make sense?
So you're saying the emergency access, which is essentially just a dirt road?
It's going to be crushed gravel, correct? Crushed gravel.
Okay, so that will be available after filings 1, 2, and 3
Correct.
are complete?
Yes.
Okay, and then when you get onto your next filings, that's when, because I think one of the agenda items that we have down here is the annexation of part of Higbee Road. Maybe I should have requested a reversal to find out, in that regard. But the annexation means that we now own Higbee, or that portion of Higbee Road will be ours, and there'll be no more county interference as far as that's concerned. So at that point, at the next filings, after you've completed those first 3 filings, you're saying you will be able to do a full-fledged road, paved road?
It will not be the full entirety of build out, but it'll be a paved surface that's 33 feet wide all the way to Higbee Road for filings 4, 5, 6, and 7. And ultimately, there'll be a full entire section. It's kind of like there's an intermediate paved road being constructed.
Okay, so I guess
the ultimate build out, I don't know, Ken, you want to speak to the ultimate build out of it at all?
So yeah, the ultimate build out for Glen Eagle, for the approved phase 1 for Homeplace Ranch was not included. So any future extension of the permanent road would be part of a phase 2 of Homeplace Ranch or via another funding mechanism that I know the Tri-View Metro District is trying to work together to get that road extended. But in terms of the obligation for the phase 1, obligation is just to do the temporary road so that there's enough time for Tri-View to work out those agreements and also for time for Higbee Road to get improved to a level where it's safe to connect to it. That was one of the issues that the county had, and it's, should be the same issue with the town having ownership, site distances and a lot of issues with that intersecting or that connection, getting in all that extra traffic getting up on Higbee. So I know you're all aware of, some planned improvements on Higbee down the road. So until those improvements take place, yeah, it's not a real good idea to put all that permanent traffic out. Okay.
Other questions from the board?
I guess I'm curious about the density. This meets our density. These lots are tiny. They're postage stamps, if not less. 4,500 square feet. I don't know how many there are going to be that small. Some that are going to be sub 6,000 square feet. What's the product that you're putting on these lots? Are these houses? These are single detached homes?
Single family detached homes, all of them are. And the density for phase 1, which is filing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, all of them, is about 300 lots. That's what we got approved for with the Board of Trustees. And that's what we're at right now, is 300 lots. So we're meeting the density that was approved as part of the plan development from a couple of years ago.
Did something change from a couple of years ago? Did we find out if the densities changed in the comp plan? This just seems too small.
Trustee LeKind, Megan Harrington, Planning Director. This is in conformance with the plan that they have approved. That's that final site plan. Typically what they look at is when calculating the density, you calculate in all of that open space as well. So that's how the developer is able to get to the smaller lot product, which is, they vary the product. There's some larger lots, there's the smaller lots, but cumulatively they have that approval for that maximum number of lots at that maximum density. And then the density is basically including incorporation of all of those open space and trail areas. So the lot size does meet the final site plan that this board approved a year or two ago. It could have been a little longer. I'm hazy on my dates for when it was approved, but the lot size, the overall density, the open spaces that are shown on the final plat all meet what was approved as part of that final site plan. And remember too, this final plat is really a technical document that's creating the lots that basically mirror what was approved on that final site plan. So there's been no change. We have a minor amendment to the final site plan, but there's really been no major lot change. They're still coming in and equaling out what was approved as part of that final plat. So I guess that's a long way to say the lots are small, but the density meets what was approved.
If I could just add, so for phase 1, which is the 300 lots, we have about 41% open space for the entire project. So it's pretty significant open space. And even going back beyond to the original sketch plan that was approved in 2006, this phase allowed 390 homes, and we came with 300 homes at the time. All of Homeplace Ranch originally was approved for 1,200 homes. When we came back in with our first PD amendment, we said that we need no more than 690 homes, and even that's not going to be achievable on what we're doing. So I would argue that we're half the density for all of Homeplace Ranch that was originally approved.
Okay, and then I just want to reiterate something on the roads that Trustee Stevens brought up. So can you bring up a map of the first phase and the ingress and egress? Where is it going to be the primary entry to the development?
Glen Eagle Drive is being extended, and then Sanctuary Rim will access into these parcels.
And then then the road that's going to head north to Higbee, you're saying that in the first phase, the improvements will be crushed gravel. So they're not really going to be designed for the purposes of daily travel.
Yeah, correct. And that was part of the emergency access only required by the Tri Lakes Fire District, but the county would not allow any sort of full access.
So it'll be gated off?
It will not be gated.
So people will or could use it?
Illegally.
And
it will be signed. It will be signed.
Right. Triview Metro. Well, this goes back to our ordinance on the rules of the road change. No one's going to follow. So Triview is going to maintain this gravel road.
Well, we will maintain it. The developer will maintain it.
During the time that you're developing all your homes.
Correct.
And then you're going to turn it over. In what condition when it's all said and done? What will the road be?
You want to address the actual full section, and that won't be until the last filings, but address the actual full section of Glen Eagle.
Section will be a continuation of what you see on Glen Eagle to the south. That same road classification continues all the way, but we'll only be building within the limits of phase one, which you can kind of see on the exhibit that's up right now. Bold line extends around. That's the limit of for Glen Eagle as part of phase one. So everything, that'll be the full section, curb and gutter, utilities up to that bold line, and everything north of there would just be that 33-foot temporary road that would be extended as part of, triggered as part of filing 4, 5, and 6.
Okay. I know you're going to be hearing some comments about this beyond me.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, this is a public hearing item. Mr. Anderson, do we have anyone online that would like to speak on this item? Okay. Do we have anybody present that would like to speak on this item? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees, Ken Kemple, 16151 St. Lawrence Way. Just have a somewhat brief comment with some questions in there, hopefully that the board can answer, and as long as the developer as well. To the Board of Trustees who we elected by the residents of Monument to serve, we're all voted in to represent the residents of the town and based your decisions off of the current comprehensive plan and town ordinance codes. Since 2017 to date, members of my community in Promontory Point have been sending emails or attending planning commissions, Board of Trustees meetings, raising concerns regarding Glen Eagle and the new home buildings that are going up Homeplace Ranch. Many of the residents have either decided not to continue pursuing, having their voices concerns brought up because they feel like it doesn't really matter because the board's either not taking the time to discuss it or answers are not being provided. So basically they feel like nobody cares. I don't feel that way. I believe in the system and I believe in you, the Board of Trustees, who will take up the discussion. Keep in mind, the initial build is 300 homes to be built just north of Promontory Point with no road extending to Higbee. So that means 300 residents average 10 trips a day that have to go south on Glen Eagle Drive in conjunction with Sanctuary Point traffic. They have 600 plus homes being built. I think they're currently 400 plus that are already using that access road, which there's no definition of in town ordinance anywhere. So that's almost 1,000 homes in conjunction with 259 homes in Promontory Point using a 1 mile stretch, Glen Eagle. It's a 1 mile stretch to get to Baptist. We did a study, traffic study back in 2018. The residents on Promontory Point, when it wasn't even fully built out, is over 2,000 trips a day. That was taken in May for 3 days for a 24-hour period for each day. That wasn't even during the school period. We have 9 bus stops on Glen Eagle. We have 3 blind spots on Glen Eagle. Homeplace Ranch is going to tell you that the town fire marshal has given the okay to have an access road put in place to Higbee. No traffic can utilize it because it's only going to be gravel, and even if it was paved, it's not going to be marked. There's no such definition of an access road in town ordinance or the El Paso County engineering criteria. Again, this originally was proposed in 2017. In 2018, again, our traffic study was done by TriView after we asked the town of Monument to do one, and it failed. They didn't do it, so TriView did it for us. I asked the board to either amend the current proposal by to have the developer or to not have the development Homeplace Ranch done until an actual road can be built from the current Glen Eagle all the way out to Higbee Road, as well install mini roundabouts on Glen Eagle due to the increased traffic development. Here are my reasons. Glen Eagle is not a complete road. It's only just over 1 mile in length right now. El Paso County Master Plan actually shows Glen Eagle is supposed to go all the way to Highway 105. I'm just saying that that's what it says in their study. Currently, what type of road is Glen Eagle considered? Is it a major or minor collector or a local urban rural minor collector? That makes a difference for how many cars can be accommodated on this 2-lane road. Engineering Criteria Manual, which was adopted in December 2004 and revised in December 2016, was developed to be consistent with the El Paso County Land Development Code and ensure public infrastructure meets engineering standards for the welfare of the public. Appendix B of this roadway traffic volume traffic count shall be no more than 1 year old from the date the application was submitted. How old is the Homeplace Ranch traffic study? We still haven't been told that. When was it done? When was it completed? Appendix B1, threshold capacity shows a 2-lane minor collector. Threshold capacity is 3,000 vehicles for local urban and 1,500 for rural. A 2-lane major collector is 10,000 for urban and 3,000 for rural. I will challenge that we are a 3,000 vehicle a day collector. Total traffic. During the total traffic study, if the developer comes across that the projections will include, it's supposed to include existing traffic, plus the future background traffic, plus the projected general public traffic. So that's going to mean all of Homeplace Ranch, all of Sanctuary Point, and Promontory Point to use Glen Eagle. If the projections and depicted the figures in the Appendix B, it's based upon the projections, the developer has to come up with mitigation measures on what to do. My suggestion is the road is extended to Higbee prior to the first home being built, period. This goes into emergency procedures as well. Emergency access. They're talking about a gravel road, rain and snow conditions. People are going to use that road because it's not gated. If everyone is using that road, then how are the emergency vehicles going to come in? If you have a standard road according to the criteria guideline, you have marked laned roadways with signage. In the Town of Monument Ordinance 18.02.260 Final Plat, Procedure 2D, prior to acting on the final plat, the Planning Commission Board of Trustees must find that the final plat phase planning will not impede the orderly growth of public services and infrastructure necessary to the efficiency served each individual and all the individual phases of this development. Section 18.02.240, the sketch plan. It's good for 2 years from the time the Planning Commission's approved. Then this was originally brought into us at 2017 when I was on the Planning Commission. Then it must be either renewed and it's only good for 2 years, or must be refiled, a new application submitted. Was there one? Did the developer hold another public hearing with everybody? Section 18.05.125, street alley, Part C and D. There shall be at least 2 points of access for all residential subdivisions with 25 or more single-family dwelling units. Deviation from this provision may be permissible for topography, or other unique circumstances where a second access point is not feasible. And this is where I've been coming to you time and time again saying the residents of Promontory Point only have one access. That's from Baptist Road. Another town ordinance, all streets and alleys shall be designed in construction in accordance with the Town of Monument Roadway Design and Technical Criteria Manual. Within there, there's no such thing as an access road, emergency, there's nothing in there about that. And that's also subcategorized in 25 TAC 2021, Exhibit A, 6 TAC 7, TAC 2021. Again, I asked the board to suspend the development of Homeplace Ranch until Higbee Road can be connected with Glen Eagle. I'm not trying to stop development. I'm trying to be smart about infrastructure and the safety of everyone. Again, when you consider Sanctuary Rim Drive, it's going to be connected to Glen Eagle for Sanctuary Point, which is going to be over 600 homes. They're currently 400 plus, already using that access road down Glen Eagle, and us now add 300 more homes on top of that. 9 bus stops, school bus stops, with no pop-outs or no turnouts, which was part of one of the recommendations from the independent traffic study that we had done to be built in. There's no mini roundabouts, which El Paso County has it in their criteria that can be developed to slow down traffic and help mitigate other problems. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to? Order, please. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this item? Okay, will you connect them? What was that name again? Mr. Worth, you may speak when you are ready. Mr. Anderson, does it show him connected? On our end or his end?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi. George Worth, resident of Promontory Point. I won't take up a lot of your time. I think Ken outlined a lot of the safety concerns. I am an active cyclist, an active walker. Today alone, I almost got hit 4 times walking on Glen Eagle Drive. I saw a DMS boom crane truck going around the corners close to 45 miles an hour. I saw 3 cars run the stop sign at Lion's Tail, and that was simply a afternoon walk with my dog. So you guys are asking for a disaster to happen, a safety issue, a death, a pedestrian accident, a cyclist collision, and these are just common Colorado practices. Other than that, I think Ken summarized exactly the safety concerns, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, is there anyone else online? And no one else in public?
Hey, I'm Allison Robenstein. I just have a question of clarification. With regard to Higbee improvements, what is the cost? I know that you're engineers and not traffic engineers, but what is the cost to improve Higbee before Glen Eagle can come through?
Thank you. Sorry, you had a comment?
Good evening. My name is Hal Stanton. I just wanted to kind of tie in a little bit of what Ken was talking about from the safety aspect and the additional traffic that is on Glen Eagle now on everyday aspect. And you know, all the crosswalks that we do have marked right now, I mean, people are driving at excessive rates of speed. And with some of the blind corners that we do have, when you even step into a crosswalk, you're still at risk of even trying to be able to make it across safely. I've watched kids kind of run across the street just for the sheer sake of just trying to be safe. So, I mean, you know, our yard backs up right onto Glen Eagle. We see all the construction traffic that goes up and down here every day. I mean, these vehicles are moving with excessive speed. And as we're adding more and more homes, we're going to have more and more traffic on here, which is going to make, obviously, Glen Eagle much more dangerous to be able to travel. Even just sometimes getting out of our side streets sometimes becomes a challenge because people come down the street so fast. And I had, just for example, 2 years ago, I had, during our winter time period, I had 2 cars that ended up on the sidewalk right where we live. In other words, they were coming down at such a fast rate of speed when they tried to slow down as they're coming towards Baptist. When they hit the brakes, they lost complete control and they ended up in our backyard. So, you know, it's just a matter of people don't realize how fast they're actually going coming down these streets. And so that's, you know, that's becoming more and more of a concern. And like I said, I watch children during the day cross back and forth. I myself have stepped out just, you know, my wife and I, we do walk the sidewalks and stuff as well, like Ken had indicated. I've stepped into the crosswalk, partially in the crosswalk, and I watched people just fly right on by us. Not stop, not slow down. They just, you know, missed us within a matter of a foot or two. I mean, so, you know, there's a lot of, what I'm getting to is there is an excessive amount of traffic already today. And as we're adding more and more homes, it's only going to continue to get worse unless we come up with some sort of strategies or some sort of ideas where we can kind of dissipate some of this traffic flow. So that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, would you like to comment?
My name is Howard Hayworth. I can't add any details that Ken added, just simply because he's done his research well. But I live on Glen Eagle. I'm at the very top of Glen Eagle, and I'm watching the construction on a daily basis. And I'm not, again, as Ken said, I'm not looking to stop development because someone developed my home that I get to. But I do I'm probably the last house on Glen Eagle, so I'm watching this on a daily basis. And there's a new family that just moved in right across the street on the corner of Glen Eagle and St. Lawrence. And I'm telling you, Ken, you've probably witnessed this. I bet you we've got 20 kids riding bicycles every day. I have pulled off Glen Eagle onto St. Lawrence and there's just kids everywhere. And to your point, sir, I'm concerned from a safety standpoint of construction vehicles and just people in general rushing up and down Glen Eagle. You know, I don't want to be over dramatic, but what's the price of a child versus development? We have construction trucks moving in and out all the time. I understand the granite road. I've actually watched people from my deck. Right now, you guys are doing construction and you got road closed barriers. I have watched people drive around the barriers over the sidewalk to get around them to keep going. I've watched people get out of their cars and move the barriers so they can drive. So regardless of the roads, people are going to continue to drive. Regardless of whatever barriers you put on, I can't believe people have driven over the sidewalks to get around those. And what if there's a child rounding the corner as a car driving over the sidewalks? So again, my concern is not to stop development. My concern is to do the right thing and to extend the road. And I also I don't understand too why we have a development of over 300 houses. And Ken, again, I don't understand this, but I thought I heard you say something about 2 access points into a neighborhood. So we've got 300 new homes, but the only access to and from is from Glen Eagle. Why is there not an access point to the west of this neighborhood onto Leather Chaps or anything else to get traffic also flowing that way? Why does all the development have to come up to Glen Eagle? So just some questions that I have. Again, I'm not stopping. I don't want to stop development. That can be healthy, but it's got to be done in a safe manner to protect our children, to protect people walking up and down the road, and to also just make sure traffic flows correct. Because again, if we look at 300 new homes, I'm guessing 2 cars per family. That's just a lot more traffic up and down our neighborhood street. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Point of clarification, Mr. Rivera. Do we need to somehow separate the public hearing for each resolution? Okay. Okay. So just to publicly clarify, this is the public hearing for resolution number 55, 2021, and resolution number 56, 2021. So if there are anyone who would additionally like to comment, we will allow for that. Okay. Okay, Ms. Parrish, you are able to speak if you'd like to.
Yes, Robin Parrish. I live on St. Lawrence Way. I would like to say that Ken has done a great job in doing his research. I would also like to just reiterate that we have way more kids living on these streets on St. Lawrence Way during the day. I've seen very large semis and trucks come down from Sanctuary Point, and this is just Sanctuary Point construction, pull into St. Lawrence Way, and then even on Penn Central trying to back up and turn around. Again, this is a cul-de-sac area. There are very small children playing on these in these areas, on these sidewalks, and the Glen Eagle situation with the 9 bus stops and the blind spots on that road, just with residents alone coming down that road too fast, it's a very dangerous road. When you add the construction of Homeplace Ranch, and we're not even talking the completion, we're talking the construction traffic alone coming up and down Glen Eagle, is going to be very dangerous. The builders, I know you all try and do your best, but you don't control all of those contractors, and quite simply, they don't care. So I just want to reiterate, we all know that progress needs to happen. There are more and more people moving in, houses need to be built, but one road for all of those homes and all of that construction traffic is insufficient. It would be negligent to approve and build with just Glen Eagle. None of the builders are going to come down through Sanctuary Point. Most of the Sanctuary Point people living on this end don't use that access. And again, it's only going to Baptist Road. How is Baptist Road going to handle all of that traffic in the event of a fire or an emergency situation? That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we will close the public hearing portion. Would the applicant like to rebuttal?
Okay, there's a lot there, but we're going to try to hit some of the highlights, and I think some of it may have to be addressed by Debbie or Megan in terms of the town's process and things, but we'll hit some of the highlights. First, I think it's important to note as part of I think Mr. Kimball brought up about the comp plan and how we meet that and things. When the original sketch plan, I was mentioning that to you earlier about the original approvals and how we came with a lot less density, committed to a lot more open space than all those original plans, right? And the original agreement that the Board of Trustees approved back 2 years ago was that we could build up to 300 lots, all of phase 1, without a connection to Higbee. So that's a really important point. Now, when we came back to do the minor amendment, what we agreed to was to make a connection to Higbee after 142 lots. So after 1 and 2 are completed, we then agreed to build this Glen Eagle connection up to Higbee. So that was actually, we felt like we were coming and meeting you guys halfway and agreeing to that. But the original agreement was not to build the connection to Higbee until way after the original 300 lots were constructed. The other thing I think is important to note is, the criteria from which you all are supposed to be approving this final plat, which we have outlined. I think Debbie went through all that as well. Does not actually get into traffic and safety and things like that, because all that was addressed as part of the original sketch plan approval, as part of the original plan development approvals. We went through all these issues, and they're valid issues. I'm not saying they're not, but we went through all of this stuff when we got the original improvement as part of the plan development. And everything was recommended for approval by the Plan Commission and approved by the Board of Trustees. And we are meeting all of those original approvals. There's not a single one that we're not meeting. So I think that's important to note. Next, as far as the safety on Glen Eagle, south of us, of course, is already constructed. We can't do anything about that. Our property is separate. However, what we did on Glen Eagle, as it comes in, if you look at it closely at the plan, I don't know, Megan, if you could bring up an overall site plan on this, but Glen Eagle, we actually put some curves in it and did some undulating of Glen Eagle, as well as put a roundabout at Sanctuary Rim Drive that you can see up there in the northeast part of that graphic. That was something that came out of the original plan development approvals by the Board of Trustees to have some traffic calming. So that was our contribution on Glen Eagle, where if you look south of us through Promontory Point, which again is not our project, none of that was put in place. I mean, I'm sure all of us in this room wish that they would have done a roundabout or some other traffic calming things through Promontory Point. But unfortunately, they did not. And unfortunately, there are some blind spots that Mr. Kimball, I believe, pointed out. There's several blind spots when that road was designed, and probably wasn't the best design in the world. But again, that wasn't our part. So we tried to do our part on our property by putting some very slight curves in the roundabout and things like that to help slow traffic. And a lot of those other safety concerns, the speeding and stuff, I think, is it Mr. Hudson over here, had some of the conversation before about enforcing these things. I mean, a lot of that stuff, of course, is out of our realm to be able to enforce this. It's part of the police department to enforce the laws that you have in place on Glen Eagle. So certainly we can't do anything about that. But we try to play our part on our property. I think, looking down, scanning through all my notes I took, I think that covers a lot. I think Ken's going to come up and just supplement some of what I just said with some of from an engineering perspective. Then we'll see if there's anything remaining questions.
Thanks, Phil. Just touch on a couple. I'm sure we're going to miss one. You went through a lot of items, but a couple I had noted down. I mean, specific to the criteria for a temporary access road. You are correct. There is no specific criteria for that. That was derived based on some negotiations and agreements with Triview and the town as we went through that. So just for perspective, though, I mean, the full paved width of the ultimate section for Glen Eagle, which is what's out there now, and what we're proposing to do for the approved portion is about 46-foot pavement, which is really only a 2-lane through section. There's a center line median, which is really just for a lot of turning movements. So effectively, 33-foot pavement is probably more than adequate for just 2 through lanes of traffic that'll extend through an area of the site that's really not going to have any other intersections at that point. So it's, that's where that cross section was derived from, is just as a temporary measure. And I do want to reiterate the point that I mentioned before is I think it was a concern of the county. It's a concern everyone should have. I mean, before that intersection can connect to Higbee, there really has to be some improvements on Higbee, which are still in the works. The Tri-View in the town has just finished a study analyzing that, so I know there's a plan in the works, but it's just going to take time for that plan to get implemented and funded to a point where it is actually safe to bring all this extra traffic north to Higbee. So valid point. Yeah, everybody wants to see Higbee go through right now, but at this point, it's just not feasible, nor was it in any of the agreements that we had. Said we did concede as part of that negotiation to trigger that at an earlier date. So hopefully at that time, there'll be funding in place for full improvement on Eagle and also Higbee.
Just one more thing to add on Glen Eagle that I didn't talk about because I think it was brought up about when the original traffic study was done, which was early 2019 when we did our study. And our traffic consultant went through and proved that Glen Eagle is a major collector and it can handle all the traffic from not only Homeplace Ranch, but also from Sanctuary Point. And not only that, the intersection down at Baptist in Glen Eagle can also handle it. I think by the time Sanctuary is built out, Homeplace was built out, that intersection was still not going to be at a capacity. Like it was still going to be, I want to say it was, don't quote me on this, like 60-70% of capacity on that intersection, something like that. So all this development can be handled. Now, I get the concerns of the neighbors that, yes, but it's unsafe for children to be walking across and everything. I've been in Glen Eagle probably 50 times, and I've seen the same exact thing. But again, we've played our part on our property. We can't fix past problems or maybe mistakes in the way the Glen Eagle is designed south of us. We feel like we've done everything we could do on our property. Some of the other things that were brought up had to do more with the process of the sketch plan process and PD. That I don't know if you guys want to address that or not, up to you, but I don't feel that's probably my part to get into the details of that. So I think with that, we'll conclude our answers, but if there's more questions, we certainly will answer those.
Thank you. Ms. Harrington or Ms. Flynn, do you have anything you would like to add?
Mr. Mayor, Megan Harrington, Planning Director. I have an image up here on the screen. I think while we can't control what has happened in the past, I would like to tell you what happens moving forward. This is the final plat. This is filing number 1. You will notice the roundabout, fully designed roadway, Glen Eagle over to Sanctuary Rim. This right-of-way is all being platted. So while on the final plat, you can't actually physically see what's being constructed, they are platting the right-of-way. We do have construction drawings under review currently for all of this roadway per the note on the approved plan related to what improvements are required with this filing. So we're ensuring that all of that is being done. We review all of the building permits. They don't get any COs for building permits until this is all constructed. The town collects a financial assurance. We have the developer sign a public improvement agreement that outlines specifically all of the improvements that they're required to do. So while you may not agree with what the improvements are that are required at this point, they are pretty well defined on this plan that's already been approved. And we will ensure that this first filing requirement is completed, fully constructed before any building permits. Building permits will be pulled, but before anybody is physically living in any of the homes. This road that you see here, this piece right here, the roundabout, and the access that's being platted here, that will all be constructed. I don't know if that helps with your feeling of what happens, how does the town ensure that the improvements are completed, but that's what we would do with the building permit process. And then again, there's this other note on the approved plan related to the emergency access to be built along future Glen Eagle Drive with filing number 1, temporary condition. We're just taking this off of the approved plan, and when we go out there through the final inspection process, we'll ensure that all of these phase 1 requirements are met.
Questions from the board?
So from a timing perspective, because I wasn't here for the original 05, 06, whenever this started up until recent. Do we have any expired applications that we are dealing with that have not been resubmitted properly and have been voted on in front of the public?
No, because I would say the sketch plan is approved, the zoning was approved. The next step in the process is a preliminary and final site plan, which was approved by the board in the year, it's getting away from me.
2019.
Thank you very much. 2019. So that's the next step. That preliminary final site plan vests the property right. So that's the document that is the go-to as they develop this first phase of development within Homeplace Ranch. That is the piece. So I wouldn't say that the sketch plan is expired now, because this document is approved and now this becomes the governing document. It's more specific than the sketch plan. I would have to look into how that provision impacts the other portions of Homeplace Ranch. However, those other portions of Homeplace Ranch could potentially fall into the old code. But again, I'm not prepared to kind of comment on that moving forward. I'd have to look at the previous code versus the code that's in place today related to all of the timing and how that all occurred on a timeline.
But so I understand this, the sketch plan has a 2-year lifespan between phases. Is that how this works? And when was it approved originally? And if we're counting 2 years, did it go past the 2 years?
So the question would be, did the sketch plan go past the 2 years before the first phase, which is this drawing, was adopted by the board? I would have to look that up for you. I don't know. I would assume that would have come up in 2019 when this document was approved, had it expired.
It did come up in the public hearings at the Board of Trustees meeting, and at the time, Larry Manning and Jennifer addressed this, because this exact same issue came up at that time, and it was addressed in their determination that the sketch plan had not expired. It would be on public meeting and public record if you want to go back and review that.
No,
and I would also
no further comment on that.
One other comment on that is that I think to what maybe Megan was getting at is the sketch plan was the sketch plan back in 2006 approved, but when we got the preliminary and final PD document approved for 300 lots, that's the guiding document as of today. So in my opinion, the sketch plan doesn't matter anymore, because now we have this approved document that we're supposed to be abiding by, and you all as a town are supposed to be abiding by. That's the official development plan for the project.
Ms. Harrington, did you have something to add?
You know what, if I don't have anything conclusive for you, but what I can say is this preliminary final site plan is already approved now. So in 2019, had the sketch plan been expired, there may have been a conversation to have at that point. However, now we have an approved for 2.5, 3 years now, final site plan. And I guess I would also look at the town attorney if he has any off the top of his head comments related to that. But we have an approved preliminary and final site plan that vests property rights, approved by the Board of Trustees in 2019. And I think that is the document that takes precedence now.
I'm not familiar with the history of this since 2006, and if there was a final PD site plan approved in 2019 under the old code, that vested property right.
Yeah, I just want to say, in my judgment, I agree with Mr. Kimple. I think that that the ordinance that he cited indicating we need 2 access points takes priority over a previously approved sketch plan. And in my judgment, that sketch plan, I only voted on that because at that time the county had restricted us and said they would not approve any type of road, fully developed road to Higbee Road. But in about a few minutes, or maybe an hour or so, we'll have an annexation of Higbee. So I personally would like to either suspend or modify this resolution to be able to, that we have because I agree, this is a terrible safety, and I'm shocked. I would encourage our police department. I know we have a ballot measure 2F, which is intended to put more more police officers on the street. All the money goes to our police department so we can improve our staffing. And so I would encourage our police department to keep an eye on Glen Eagle. If people are just driving on the sidewalk to get around barriers that are duly set up, I think that's totally inappropriate. But with that in mind, if that's the kind of drivers we've got out there, that access road isn't going to stop anybody. So even though we've got signs that says emergency access only, I consider that to be a safety, issue, and I think people will be driving on that access road. So I personally would like to see that road completed as part of filing 1 or 2, or this group of filings that we're, looking at today, filings 1 and 2. I would like to either attach that as a stipulation, or if they want to wait, I'm okay with waiting until we get, more things nailed down. Sounds like a number of issues about the original filings are still up in the air, or something to that effect. So anyway, that's my position. I'd like to either put a stipulation on this that we attach the completion of this road as part of these filings.
Are we within our rights to do that? So let me clarify a couple things.
Okay.
The item that you have on your agenda tonight related to Higbee Road is only to set a hearing. State statute requires that the board adopt a resolution to set a hearing for consideration of the annexation. So you won't be getting a detail on Higbee Road this evening, because that would be outside of the public hearing. This resolution you have tonight is just to direct staff to notice and post per state statute requirements to have the full hearing on Higbee Road on the 15th of November. So I, under the resolution, the next resolution related to Higbee Road, would actually stay away from giving you too much detail, because then we're not in the public hearing. We're just setting the public hearing for November 15th. So Trustee Stevens, I don't want you to move forward thinking you're going to get a bunch of detail from staff this evening related to Higbee Road, because unfortunately you're not until the 15th, when we have the agenda item fully scheduled. It's the public hearing. We'll have TriView here, El Paso County, related to a full discussion of what that project would be. Second of all, and again, I don't want to step on the town attorney's toes, this final site plan has already been approved, and we have the site plan up here, and I put it up here purposefully so that you could see the notes that were already approved related to the timing and the phasing. And so now, with the final plat being the technical document, tagging stipulations on the final plat, you're actually going back and superseding what you already approved. And I guess, Joe, if you want to weigh in on if that can be done. I have not seen that done. Again, I would hope that these conversations would have been had in 2019, as they are very, very well documented here on the plan, and it's very easy for staff to follow through on these notes and what needs to be done when. And it hasn't been so long ago that the fire access comments would be negated. I mean, those comments are all still very relevant comments, just from 2 years ago. I don't know, Joe, if you have anything else to add related to the councilwoman's question about can that be done?
So there is a number of factors going on. It is true that they have a vested property right. It is at 18.02.260C. And like the think becomes that the developer has a vested property right. So the question becomes, does the condition undermine the vested property right? And I don't know what that condition is, but that's how I'm thinking about it presently at this point. That makes sense?
My point is, this is not, I just went through the resolution. It says now, therefore, be it resolved in section 1, the Board of Trustees approves the above identified final plat. So we're not just voting on a public hearing for November 15th. According to this, we're approving the final plat. And I don't want to come in on November 15th and have people tell me, well, you approved back in October the final plat. Okay, my concern is that this road does not first of all, violates our ordinance because, and it wasn't brought to our attention. And I, of course, Ms. Harrington wasn't, you weren't here at that time. So I'm somewhat disappointed in the staff at that time to not bring up the fact that the ordinances state that there has to be 2 access points. Secondly, I consider it a safety issue to have a gravel road out there because people are driving around barriers. They're going to be driving on that gravel road, and it's going to be a safety concern and a safety issue. So my condition is that or that I would like to attach, is that we have this road completed to Higbee Road as part of the let's see, I can't, again, I'm trying to remember, you're doing filings 1, 2, and 3, and then later on there's a filing 4, 5, and 6.
Yes.
And at 4, 5, and 6, I presume there's going to be something done to the road at that point.
That's when we make that connection to Higbee.
Right, I'd like to move that up as part of filing 1, 2, and 3. So that's the stipulation the condition I would like to attach.
Are we able to make comments at this time, or do you want to wait till your discussion is finished?
Go ahead.
So 2 critical items here. First of all, the notion that it's a violation of your code with 2 points of access. We will pull that map back up. There we go. Thank you. So, Megan, I may need your help with pointing out a couple of things. Number one, as part of filing 1 and 2, we do have 2 points of access. Okay, we have Glen Eagle. We have Sanctuary Rim Drive, if you can point those out, which is off to the east that goes through Sanctuary. So those are 2 points of access into our property for filing 1 and 2. Okay.
Wait, now that does Sanctuary Point, where does it go?
Can you point out Sanctuary Rim? If you can see where it
Yeah, does it just go into another, if it goes into another, what do you call it?
It goes into-
cul-de-sac area
No.
with no outlet, then
Sanctuary Rim that goes east, you saw the roundabout that was up there. The road that goes east is Sanctuary Rim.
yes, I
And
see
that goes through Classic Home Sanctuary Point community all the way over to Baptist. That's their collector road that goes through their entire project, comes into Homeplace Ranch.
So
And that's their second point of access.
I brought this map up here on the screen so you can see this is the temporary road design here. Hopefully this helps.
Yep.
And then that's better. This is Sanctuary Rim that goes all the way through Sanctuary. And it is all connected and constructed and built. And it comes out.
Right there at Baptist.
Baptist.
So that is our second point of connection into the filing 1 and 2. So I want to make that clear. And then as far as, this change of building Glen Eagle and the timing of that, as Megan was pointing out, again, that on the previous approvals that the Board of Trustees approved was that we could build up to 300 lots, okay? And we, through negotiations as part of the amendments to that PD, got it down to 142 lots. So after 142 lots, we were going to make a connection to Higbee. So it's already been approved by the Board of Trustees. We've already made concessions in the past, and those were approved. So To go back on those original agreements, I would highly question that.
Well, the only reason that the approval occurred was because of the requirements of the county. And the county required the access road. Okay, so that's my concern. So anyway, I've said already my point is
But I
that
would
the access.
question now that there's a possible annexation of the road, can you change the rules on the developer?
Yeah.
So if it's already approved, can you say, well, now we're not going to approve this because we might be able to build that road sooner?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think
I think we're
the
getting
hearing,
into-
the hearing is going to be in a month. Because all today we're going to do is approve the hearing.
Nope, that's not what it says. It says.
That's
the
what
Board
she
of
said.
Trustees up-
For Higbee
Okay.
Road, we're just setting a date.
All right.
That's all we're doing.
So unfortunately, if we were having the hearing and then we were going through the public hearings for the plats, there'd be possibility of setting conditions. But as it stands right now, the only thing in front of us right now is these resolutions to approve the final plats, and what roads come after, we don't have any control of right now.
Okay, so I'm reading Resolution 55, 2021. The Board of Trustees approves the above final plat subject to conditions listed in Exhibit A. And this,
not.
Okay, which one is?
The Higbee Road,
will be
setting the hearing,
Okay,
57.
right, that's coming up.
Right.
Okay.
But there'll be no discussion of Higbee in that resolution because it's just setting a date.
Okay.
Did you have anything? I think we're getting a little out of our quasi judicial responsibilities with what has been approved, what is left, and what we have that legally would be against what we have in front of us. I think the only question there would be the expiration of an application, and I don't believe that exists. The two access points, I wouldn't say it's a developer's responsibility to make the outcome of the access point to an individual subdivision's liking or direction. We have multiple subdivisions in town where the additional access road is also the long way around. So, do we have any other comments from the board? Or questions? Okay. Seeing none at this time, I'll look for any sort of motion. Please be reminded that resolution number 55, 2021 does have conditions, and 56, 2020 has no conditions. If we do need to vote on these separately, so if there is a motion, please state which motion you are making.
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 55, 2021, but I first want to say that all the things given tonight, it does not seem ideal how this is going down. I think you've met all the criteria that you're supposed to, and I think the board is in a position that we are subject to past town staff and board members years ago that have put us here. So I will recommend approval, resolution approving the final plat for Homeplace Ranch filing number 1.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second that motion. Ms. Hogan, we have a motion and a second.
Trustee Shaning? Trustee Stevens?
No.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee LaKind?
Yes.
That motion passes 3-1. On to resolution 56, 2021.
I'll make a motion to pass resolution 56, 2021, a resolution approving a final plat for Homeplace Ranch filing number 2. Same thing applies on my feelings about this.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Is your microphone on?
I'll second that, and I'd like to echo Mitch's sentiments. Not only have we sort of inherited this problem, but as somebody who's new on this board, I guess I just feel like I'm in a position where that's the only thing we can do. So, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee LaKind?
Yes.
Trustee Shaning? Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
No.
That motion passes 3-1. I agree with Trustee LaKind, and I think there are some legitimate safety concerns in the area. I don't know that all those safety concerns fall on the developer. I think we do need to direct our police department to make this a noted area and ensure that, I'm sure it's already being done, but are we missing something? Is this area any different than any other area of town? I know we have the same concerns that were brought up tonight, brought up downtown, and we're hoping to increase our force, but I don't know that these concerns are different than other developments that have been around for years.
I would agree with you, Mr. Mayor. There's no difference than any other traffic complaint. Volume is volume, speed is speed. I would like to say that when you're talking about this access road, until that is deeded over to the town or deeded over to Triview as an actual roadway, there is no violations on that. It is considered private property.
Okay. Thank you, and we will note that. Moving on, item 7, resolution number 57, 2021, a resolution initiating annexation. Ms. Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor. For the record, Megan Harrington, Planning Director. I think we beat this one up pretty good. So I think you know where I stand on the resolution. This is just to set a hearing based on state statute requirement that the board find that the petition for annexation meets state statute, and those requirements are that it has 1/6 contiguity with the town boundary and that a legal petition from the property owner has been filed, and El Paso County did file the petition for annexation. And we are following through with the process of setting this hearing for November 15th. The resolution specifies that the town staff will complete all of the required posting and notification for consecutive weeks for posting prior to the hearing, as well as notification of El Paso County and other impacted districts. So staff will start all of that with an approval of the resolution to set that hearing for November 15th. And we will certainly make sure that Triview, El Paso County, everyone is in the room on the 15th to walk you through specifically the timing of the project, all of the different partners, because I know that there's some partnerships with other developers along Higbee Road. Triview does have some timing. I believe they have some roadway designs. We will make sure that all of those interested parties are in the room to be able to walk you through what that will look like for after annexation. So that'll all happen on the 15th.
Okay. Questions from the board for staff? Okay, so we have a resolution to set the annexation hearing for November 15th. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move Resolution 57, 2021, a resolution initiating the annex and setting a hearing date for the Board of Trustees of the Town of Monument to consider annexation of an area known as Higbee Road annexation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Shaning.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Resolution number 58, 2021, a resolution approving a contract for the design of Jackson Creek Parkway expansion. Ms. Harrington.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Trustee members, this is a request for the Board of Trustees to adopt a resolution approving a contract with Felsberg, Holt, and Ulevig in the amount of $966,364 for the design of the Jackson Creek Parkway from Higbee Road on the south to Highway 105 on the north. This is being funded through federal funding awarded to the town in the amount of $800,000, and there's a required local match of $166,311. The Board of Trustees did sign an intergovernmental agreement with CDOT. I believe that was in September of 2020 that gave the town the ability to go out and solicit bids for this work. And so through the competitive bid process, the town did select Felsberg, Holt, and Ulevig. They go by FHU, thankfully, and they will be completing this design work. The contract is all attached in your packet. It's based on a standard project agreement. So you've seen standard agreements similar to this in the past. It has all of the timing. The design work includes all of the environmental studies required to utilize those federal dollars. So there is an environmental that goes with that. Surveys, right-of-way identification. There is a public outreach component included in the contract. We think it's very important to make sure that the town residents understand what's going on and the timing of the project. And then the design also includes getting down to the engineering design bid packages for the town to start with that phased construction. This funding expires at the end of 2022, so staff expects that this design work will be completed by then, but we're going to push it around. We're going to push them a little faster. It looks like this could probably be done in the summer, next summer, 2022. With any luck, we can get out to our first phase bid contract at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023. So that may be some lofty goals, but I think we can do it. And this is to recognize that contract for this work.
Okay, and the matching portion is within our budget?
Yes, Mayor, it is in the budget, and we are working to ensure that that is rolled into 2022 as well, because obviously we're not going to use all of that funding here in the next couple months. So that will be, I believe it's in the capital projects account, and that will be rolled over into 2022.
Okay. Questions from the board in regards to this resolution?
So this is only the design at this time?
That's it, just the design.
Okay, just want to double
Yes.
check. That's a lot of money for a design.
You know, yes, I was already asked that here this evening here by my counterpart. The reason it is a little expensive is they need to ensure that there's no mouse in the area. They need to clear it for other environmental because it is federal money. We need to look at drainage. So where is all this water drainage? Right now, there's no drainage related for the roadway. So we need to look at where is all this drainage going to be detained? Do we have all of the right of way? So it's a pretty large package. And then there's funding to get us to a construction bid document. So when we do have funding, federal funding for 2023 for construction. And so the hope would be at the end of this, we get a construction package and it's all, we just bid it. Here you go. All you have to do is build this. There's no other work that's going to be required. And so it gets us to that finite level, and it's a pretty decent section of road. So it's got a big dollar sign on it.
And there's some, part of that is there's some drainage obstacles in that area, correct?
Yes, sir. There are some drainage obstacles, and that goes with how will the drainage function? Where will the drainage go? We need to figure all of that out with the design. So that's a lot of what those costs are.
And I think to Trustee Stevens' point, it does cost more to get federal money.
It sounds a little funny when you say it that way.
If we paid for it ourselves?
Exactly.
So this 966 from the feds, from us, for the engineering study, how much is being contributed by the developer?
So the design work needs to be done ahead of time. So this is all of the design work. The developer is not directly, well, actually, that's not true. The developer is contributing some of, if not all of that, 166,000 that was put into the capital projects fund. And I believe that was a carryover from the previous owner of that property that they would contribute to the local match, or ensure that we had that local match. But I'm looking at Debbie.
But then actual construction will be when we decide how much is their portion of it.
Absolutely. 100% part of this design process that we'll go through with FHU is determining the developer, the major developer up there, how much they are required to contribute to the overall construction. And I believe there's a number on that construction of $8 to $10 million total for that entire stretch. And so FHU will help the town determine how much is that developer responsibility and what does that design look like. So they will be contributing more so with the construction.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, I will look for a motion.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 58, 2021, a resolution approving a contract with FHU in the amount of $966,364 for design of the Jackson Creek Parkway expansion from the intersection of Higbee Road to the intersection of State Highway 105.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, Ms. Hogan?
Trustee LeKind?
Yes.
Trustee Shaning?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Resolution number 59, 2021. Resolution approving a subrecipient agreement between the town of Monument and El Paso County. Ms. Romero.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and trustees of the board. Tonight, I'm bringing before you a request for an approval of a subrecipient agreement with the El Paso County Community Development Block Grant Program for the Beacon Light Sidewalk Project 2. Town staff received from the El Paso County Community Block Grant Program that will enable us to install ADA compliant sidewalks from Highway 105 to 2nd Street along Beacon Light Road. Beacon Light Road project number 2 has been on the capital project priority list for some time. However, due to funding, it has not been accomplished. This project consists of constructing various sections of curb and gutter, sidewalks, ADA ramp improvements, and minor landscaping along Beacon Light Road from Highway 105 to 2nd Street. It will provide safer pedestrian access to and within the subsidized apartment complex, existing bus stops, and allow ADA access to Lavalette Park. The installation of wider sidewalks will benefit the Monument View apartment residents and will allow them safe and consistent connectivity to and from retail community service pedestrian corridor. This project consists of removal of existing damaged sidewalk, curb, and gutter, and the construction of 1,300 square yards of sidewalk, 2,400 linear feet of curb and gutter, and 11 new ADA ramps. The project will provide accessible sidewalk ramps and improve drainage at existing intersections within the Beacon Light Road subsidized apartment complex residents. I am happy to share our application was approved and the total amount of grant funds awarded to the town of Monument will be $243,725. The town will be required to provide an in-kind match of $24,372.50, which is 10% of the total amount. The Town of Monument Public Works Department will provide design, project management, and inspection services to meet the in-kind match requirement. Staff requests approval of the resolution number 59, 2021, and I stand for any questions.
Question.
Get for going last.
Questions from the board? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I move resolution number 59, 2021, a resolution approving a sub-recipient agreement between the Town of Monument and El Paso County for the El Paso County Community Development Block Grant Program.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee LeKind?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Shaning?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. That takes us to item number 8, public comments for items not on the agenda. Do we have anyone in the public that would like to make comment? Mr. Kimple.
Good evening again. Ken Kimple, 16151 St. Lawrence Way. 3 things just to add from, one is recommendation. Town staff, please update your online files. An example, I know everyone was looking for some of the things, but Planning Commission meeting minutes, I think the last post was in June. Many of the stuff is just missing, hasn't been uploaded or updated. So it's very hard to find when you're trying to present facts to the board. I had to go through some of my old notes and some of my emails and comments that I made previously at board meetings. So the online files definitely need to be updated. An example, when I hold a board at work, meeting minutes are posted in 10 days. That's a requirement. I gotta have them posted for everyone in 10 days. So maybe take that on board if I'm not sure. Second, the discussion tonight, I didn't get a chance to step up and talk about the trees in Sanctuary Point. So I bring up town ordinance 18 TAC 05 TAC 430 general site standards. Part C, existing trees. The removal of existing trees shall be prohibited unless approved by the director. All healthy trees removed greater than 6 inches in diameter shall be replaced by trees of at least 2 inches in diameter. Trees that are listed as noxious by the United States Department of Agriculture of Colorado can be removed without complying with the requirements of this section. Then goes on further about any tree removal required to implement approved site plans and designs, et cetera, et cetera. So that should answer the question from previously when you look at further development plans. As like Homeplace Ranch is knocking down trees, are they going to replace the ones they removed? And also Classic Homes as they complete out Sanctuary Point. Third, and most importantly, I asked to, or I recommend, I asked the board to take up suggestion. Right now in Code 18, the site plans, they say that they're good for 2 years. I recommend 1 year. Once the plans come and they're finally approved, that they have 1 year from that point in time to break ground on building the first home. If not, they got to come back and reapply and look at the site plans again. There's too many changes happen. Perfect example is that access road that Classic came back in 2018, 2019 timeframe to continue building Sanctuary Point because Homeplace Ranch was delayed with their issues because those two communities are supposed to be built together. So we probably wouldn't even be having this long talk about going to Higbee Road if Homeplace Ranch was on time, but they were delayed for many reasons. That's why they had to keep coming back to provide the plans. And for the Homeplace Ranch developer standing here is like, I got it approved 2 years ago. Hey, I'm sorry, guy. Plain and simple, I'm sorry. Plans change because of the surrounding environment changes as well. We can't go off of, I had this approved 5 years ago. Conditions change, safety matters, environmental. other communities that have been building up. Everything changes, so it has to be scrutinized. You guys have the allowance and you guys are allowed to say no, or with a condition. It's not just written in stone because it was approved 2 years ago. You guys can make changes. You guys are the Board of Trustees and you can do this for the safety and concern of your citizens that elected you in. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make comment? Ma'am?
I'm Janet Ladowski, live on Snowwood Drive, and I'd like to address the letter that was written to Superintendent Thomas Gregory by Trustee Darcy, signed by her, and it's on her letterhead, and then Kelly, Mayor Pro Temp, and Lori, Trustee. I have a long list of reasons why many of us, most of us educators, are very disappointed in this letter. We feel it was totally inappropriate. And due to this, I don't know if I need to present a copy of this letter to the board.
No, it's okay. I don't
Okay.
believe anybody needs.
So just very quickly, I just want to present that. It's late, but I do have a whole written list of reasons why I feel that letter was completely. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else that would like to comment? Mr. Anderson, do we have anybody online that would like to comment? Okay. I will move us on to item 9, board authorization items. We currently have no board authorization items from staff. Do we have any board authorization items from board members? Seeing none, we'll move on to Board of Trustee comments. Do we have any board members wishing to make comment? Okay, I have a couple. Ms. Harrington, Ms. Flynn, what is the turnaround time on getting Planning Commission minutes uploaded to our website?
They should really be approved by the Planning Commission before they're finalized. This summer, the last meeting that we had before the September meeting was June, and we didn't have any meetings in July or August. And so the June meeting minutes are on the website currently, but they didn't really get up there until
The last meeting.
the last meeting when they were final approved. The staff has them in draft format. But we did not hold a meeting in July or August for the sole purpose of approving the Planning Commission minutes. We held them until the next meeting where we had other items.
Could we post them in draft form and then just change it from draft to approval at the next planning meeting?
Yes, sir. We can start to post them, and we do have the YouTube video is up as well, and that's up pretty shortly after the meeting, but we will, starting here with our next meeting, post those in draft format so that the citizens don't have to come to the planning department looking for those, but they will be draft, and unfortunately it did sit a few months for finalization, but we will start posting the draft.
Are we all in agreements that that's what we would like done? Okay. Well, that was what I had. Any last minute board comments? Okay. Moving on to item 11. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned.